So, having a car in the UK is not cheap. Not only when it comes to actually buying a car, the running costs for it, but most importantly, these days, for younger drivers in particular, the insurance. I've heard so many horror stories when it comes to getting your car insured. And while I went for a relatively safe and cheap option, I would not consider it particularly cheap to insure it. It's not that uncommon for people's cars to actually be several times the value in terms of the actual insurance compared to the value of the car. You might have a car that you might have paid 2 grand for, but to insure it for a year can cost 5 or 6 grand. So what's going on, and why, on top of that as well, is car insurance going up? Last year in particular, I remember being very bad for this. My car insurance went up by, I think, nearly 20% compared to the previous year, 23 to 24. And in that time, no accidents. I still had my no claims bonus. The value of the car went down effectively. Why did the value of the insurance then go up? It's a bit of a mystery. But Auto Express has done a very good job of analysing all this. And I want to shout out these guys and read from this article today because I think it's really interesting. I think it sums up things very well in terms of why car insurance is so expensive in the United Kingdom and why it is continuing to increase, just like everything's going up. But car insurance is definitely one of the worst offenders when it comes to this. So shout out these guys. Let's go through this. Want to know why your car insurance premiums are spiraling out of control and what needs to be done about it? In this exclusive Auto Express deep dive into a now broken UK car insurance market, they uncover the multiple points of failure. Below, they identify the 5 easy steps needed to address this car insurance crisis and put some affordability back into the market. Car insurance is facing an array of new challenges ranging from rampant recent inflation to almost uninsurable electric cars exported by Chinese manufacturers with insufficient spare parts, backup, and a lack of critical repair information, which all has a lot knock on in terms of the other cars. Even if your car's a relatively safe and well-known brand like a BMW or a Mercedes, people going for other brands that are relatively unknown such as BYD, that unfortunately has a knock-on effect in terms of your insurance because if it's more expensive for the insurance companies, they're going to get the money back somehow and they will probably try and get it from you. That's just how it works. That's business, and I'm not going to get into the whole is this insurance a scam thing because that's a topic for another day, I think. But if you throw in hefty increases to the retail price of new cars, similarly high prices for the used market, and ongoing part shortages around the world, which, yes, still going on all these years later, the knock-on effect of that has been huge. It's getting better very slowly, but I don't even know if it'll ever get back to what it was before the pandemic. And they all drive the premiums for the roof. And just so you know, the premiums are basically the amount that you pay per year to insure your car. That's before we get to seemingly rampant levels of car theft, which, judging by your feedback, is routinely threatened as a no victim insurance issue by police forces who inexplicably unfocus the problem. Meanwhile, insurance underwriters are grappling with hard to access new risks associated with potential collateral damage to other cars and infrastructure from EV fires and the cost of mitigating new risks after accidents. Yes, EVs are changing the world of insurance when it comes to cars, and not in a particularly great way, in all honesty. So why has car insurance more than doubled? The upshot of all of this is that motor insurance premiums are rising, even on the cheapest cars to insure. They were 25% more expensive in 2023, following a 50% hike the year before, yet insurers still claim to be spending more on claims and costs than they're raking in via premiums. The Association of British Insurers, ABI, says that payouts rose by 21% in the final quarter of 2023 compared to a year earlier, and for every £1 collected in premiums, £1.11 was paid out. In total, £2.5 billion was paid out, with rising premiums driven by increasing costs of repair, materials, labour and second-hand cars, as well as very expensive claims for personal injury and serious accidents. None of these issues are the fault of repair industry or insurers, or are they? Is it fair that we all shoulder rocketing insurance premiums, even if, as it is true for the vast majority of drivers, we're still going around in ordinary, moderately priced cars with traditional petrol and diesel engines? Some may think the underwriters should focus more intently on the new risks and challenges and quote much higher premiums or withdraw cover where appropriate, instead of hiking prices for drivers whose habits haven't changed. Others think that the insurers should be absorbing more of the inflammatory rises, as other businesses have been forced to do when their customers aren't required to purchase their products by the law. That's the thing with car insurance in the UK. It's the law. You can't drive a car around legally. It's not like, oh, I'll just take the risk and not insure this. You have to have insurance. It is the law, which I think overall is probably a good thing. How annoyed would you be if you got hit in it by an uninsured driver, which does happen, of course. Still, people do drive cars that are uninsured, but that is, of course, illegal. That is breaking the law. I think in America you don't have to insure your car, but I could be wrong with that. It could be a state by state thing. American viewers, let us know if I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, well, what has to be done to return to sanity, normality, bring down those soaring premiums? Well, the insurance industry funded research and technical centre at Thatcham has identified a key role in trying to solve the many issues of the new challenges. According to the head of automotive, Ben Townsend, Thatcham is on the side of wanting to establish and properly function the insurance market. That starts with great cars being produced and finishes with cars that are able to be maintained sustainably throughout a body shop and repair network that appropriately prices insurance, he says. That's a luxury we've previously enjoyed thanks to an established and stable market. We've had steel or aluminium bodied cars, internal combustion engines, and the same layout for the best part of 100 years. Now, normal could mean anything from carbon monocoque to a £15,000 Far Eastern electric car with a sodium battery, he said, writing the car off because the labour cost makes it unviable. It's clear that a fast learning curve is required, yet with countless new EV brands springing up in China, India and even Vietnam, all hoping to profit from European sales, the prospect of a quick fix seems distant, especially as the issues are not limited to new brands you may have barely heard of, and affect established brands too. We've heard reports that basic information such as wheel alignment measurements can be hard to find for MG models, which I think traditionally MG were a British car manufacturer, but nowadays are owned by the Chinese. And the brand has suffered parts shortages as well on top of that. There's a quote there from MG in particular. I'm just going to skip past some of that there and just get to the car batteries because, again, EVs are a reason why. They're not the only reason why, don't get me wrong, but the EVs are actually having a knock-on effect in terms of the insurance market when it comes to their batteries. So batteries are powering an EV revolution, but insurers and repairers are struggling to keep up. There's almost no data on how much damage packs can withstand before becoming more vulnerable to faults or fires, and no established repair chain to assess and or fix damaged batteries. This means insurers are in the dark whether to, when assessing and pricing the risk. The result, they add a bit on every premium and we all suffer. Now, this is where things get a little hazy for me personally. My personal opinion on this when it comes to should we all bear the cost of these EV batteries? No, I don't think we should. I think that's really unfair personally. I think it should be everybody's choice. I think it's unfair enough that, people, when it comes to road tax and stuff like that, they have to pay extra effectively when they've got a car that produces greenhouse gases. And I understand the thinking behind that. I do get that. But I do feel like that is a bit unfair in a sense compared to EVs that don't have to pay that. It's not particularly large, and I think that EV cars do have to pay it soon. I think from March this year. I remember seeing that somewhere in terms of the congestion charge and things like London. They'll have to pay that too eventually as well because that's a congestion charge rather than a pollution charge is the difference. But, I do think that's a bit unfair. I don't think the average Tom, Dick and Harry is, this I've seen a few posts basically going over it, just saying, why do we have to actually all go and pay for this? I feel that's unfair. And I agree, if people are wanting to take on the risk of having an EV, because there are risks associated with it, not just on a day-to-day basis, but in terms of the historical data when it comes to repairing it, like this, for example. I feel like that should be a risk that is taken on by the people that are actually doing it, actually have those cars, rather than people who have petrol or diesel powered cars or hybrids for that matter. I feel like that's unfair that everybody else is having to bear the brunt of that cost. So, I feel like the insurance company should raise it for the people who have got these EVs. And I understand it from their point of view, because if they repair a car, if they get a car that is repaired, in terms of the actual people doing the repair rather than the insurance themselves, but if the mechanics are then saying, well, we think this will be enough, we're sure this will be enough, but in terms of actually doing something less, it might be risky. And then what happens if it fails? That's going to be a massive brunt. That's going to be a huge financial hit, potentially costing somebody, an injury or permanent damage or maybe even death. You don't even know. I mean, some of these fires with this are very, very severe. So I totally get why they're not wanting to take a risk for that. But charging everybody else for it, no, I don't think that's fair. I feel that is so unfair personally. All an insurer can do is underwrite the risk it sees. If it can't understand a risk, it has to price that risk appropriately. So if somebody says, here's a £35,000 battery, but if the airbags deploy, we can't tell if the battery is safe or not, then the insurer has no choice. An accident that deploys the airbags increases the risk of whether the car will be total loss. Makes sense. Makes sense from the insurance company point of view. But I don't think everybody should be bearing that cost. I think that's unfair. And the thing is, I get why they're so apprehensive about this. I mean, look at this paragraph here. Unfortunately, even the most minor damage to a battery casing is a problem potentially. And because car manufacturers themselves don't fully understand how damage affects their units, some won't guarantee them following even the smallest scrapes or dents. If the manufacturer can't guarantee it, then an insurer or body shop can't guarantee it. So they have to replace the battery. It makes sense from that point of view. And then, yeah, I mean, again, anybody who's been to a garage in the last couple of years will know there's a real shortage of people coming through to be able to repair these cars. If there's a very specialist thing like EVs as well, it's even more expensive. And then there's obviously the parts knock on and stuff like that as well. I mean, I do implore that you guys go and read this full article because I think it's a really good one from Auto Express here. And on top of that as well, I'm going to do a separate video going over how to fix the UK car insurance industry. That'll be out next week. This video's gone on for a long, long time, but I'm going to do another video as well, just going over that too. So do check that out when it is out. It will be out on Monday, the 20th of January. If you're watching this on the day this one comes out, I'm going to post this straight away on Friday. But yeah, for much more content on the world of motoring, do keep it tuned here to themotoringchronicle.com, guys. I want to hear your stories when it comes to insurance, when it comes to car insurance. What horror stories have you got? I want to hear them because I've heard a lot of them personally. And do you think it's fair that everybody else has to pony up effectively for the cost of repairing EVs, for the cost of making EVs safe for those drivers? I think that's very unfair personally. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell as well, and we'll see you very soon, guys. Have a good one.